Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe, and turn on notifications.
Lucas walked slowly down the sidewalk, with measured steps, like someone trying to delay the inevitable. Every meter he covered was a silent effort to control the avalanche of emotions pulsing inside him. This walk wasn't meant to clear his mind or change his thoughts but to organize them, to find some shred of serenity before crossing the threshold of his home and facing what, for a long time, he knew would happen. The path was familiar, but the feeling was like heading to an entirely different destination, as if the man who left that morning wasn't the same one returning now. When his hand touched the doorknob, he closed his eyes for a second, took a deep breath, and turned it firmly. As he entered, he noticed the heavy atmosphere in the air, something dense that didn't need to be explained because it was already understood between them. Olivia was sitting at the table, her hands clasped on the surface, her fingers restless, pressing against each other. She briefly raised her eyes but quickly looked away, like someone afraid of being judged by someone who already knows the whole truth. The silence between them wasn't due to lack of things to say but rather filled with everything that had accumulated over months: suspicions, discoveries, resentments, and most importantly, the certainty that what once united them no longer existed. Lucas dropped his keys on the counter, took off his coat, and hung it on the back of a chair with an automatic motion, without any hesitation or dramatic gesture. There was no room for scenes or theatrics. He positioned himself in front of her, arms crossed, standing still, observing every reaction that appeared on Olivia's face. She seemed to shrink with each passing second, as if the weight of what she was about to say was too crushing to bear with dignity. Lucas didn't utter a word. He just looked at her, waiting, giving her the opportunity that, for him, was essential, for her to say out loud what he had known for a long time. Her discomfort was evident, but it didn't compare to Lucas's almost unsettling calm. He had spent sleepless nights, mentally gone through all the possibilities, suffered silently through each confirmation he had gathered over time, until reaching this moment. Now, there was no more space for despair, anger, or pleas. He was there like someone watching the end of a story that, although painful, needed to be concluded. Olivia tried to sketch some defense, perhaps an explanation, but Lucas's firm and serene gaze made her understand there was no need for lies or excuses. He wasn't looking for justifications, didn't want to hear twisted versions. What he wanted was simply the truth, said directly, as a minimal gesture of respect that might still remain between them. Her first words came out haltingly, in a low tone, almost inaudible, as if saying it would shatter the little structure she had left. She confessed, tears streaming down her face, that she had gotten involved with someone else, that she had tried to fight it, that she felt confused, that she didn't want to hurt him. Lucas remained standing, looking at her, with the impenetrable expression of someone who had heard those justifications 1,000 times, even though this was the first time she verbalized them. His pain had transformed into something else, a bitter but necessary acceptance that prevented him from reacting with any emotional outburst. As Olivia broke down, Lucas stayed firm, like a rock resisting the impact of waves. Every word she spoke, every attempt to explain or soften what was, essentially, an act of betrayal, only reinforced the chasm that had formed between them. When she finished, there was no argument, no dramatic scene. Lucas just took a deep breath, glanced toward a corner, as if confirming to himself that the suspicion he had so feared had finally become an undeniable certainty. He looked back at her, without resentment, but with the clarity of someone who knew that, from that moment on, everything would change. Olivia then asked if he had anything to say. Lucas just gave a slight shake of his head and, without raising his voice, said there was nothing more to be said. She had already said it all. The confession was, for him, the final point. He didn't need anything more. She cried, murmured apologies, but Lucas, though hearing her, no longer reacted to those words. The wound she had opened no longer hurt as it once did because he had already felt it long before this moment. The silence that settled between them was more eloquent than any shout. Lucas then turned and went into the bedroom, picked up a small suitcase that had been packed for days because, deep down, he always knew this day would come. As he crossed the door again, he didn't look back. He left the same way he entered, calm, resolute, aware that he had just closed a chapter. The walk, now, wasn't about emotional preparation anymore but the start of a new journey, a path where he could finally breathe without the weight of distrust and pain. While walking away, Olivia remained in the same position, alone, in front of the table where everything was said and, at the same time, where everything ended. The emptiness of the house echoed the absence that, from then on, would become permanent. Lucas kept walking, unhurried, with the serenity of someone who had done what needed to be done. Lucas would never have gotten through that period alone. As strong as he was, used to enduring life's pains in silence, there was a limit to the weight his heart could bear without collapsing. That limit came one night when he received an unexpected message from Lauren, Cole's wife, his longtime friend, almost a brother. It was direct, without circumlocutions, like someone who couldn't carry a burden anymore. "Lucas, we need to talk. It's about Olivia and Cole." At that moment, everything stopped. The ground seemed to give way beneath his feet, but he took a deep breath and responded simply with a "when?" They met the next day, at a discreet cafe, far from familiar eyes. Lauren looked worn out, her eyes marked by sleepless nights. When she saw him, she grabbed his hand tightly, as if seeking courage. She didn't need to say much. Just a few scattered, emotionally rushed sentences were enough for Lucas to understand everything. Cole and Olivia had been having an affair for months, hidden under the guise of work meetings, casual encounters, and encrypted messages. The betrayal wasn't just from the woman he shared his life with but also from the friend he considered a brother, the one who frequented his house, played with his kids, and shared confidences. The pain was double, sharp, deep, excruciating. Lauren told him how she found out: strange hours, a different perfume, inconsistent excuses. Until one day, suspicious, she followed Cole and saw him entering a hotel with Olivia. She didn't confront him immediately, didn't make a scene. Instead, she chose to be sure, gather proof, protect herself, and above all, protect Lucas, who, to her, didn't deserve to live such a cruel lie. After telling him everything, Lauren cried, apologized for being the bearer of such terrible news, but Lucas just held her hand, unable to utter a word. He sat there, staring at the coffee cup in front of him, trying to process the fact that the betrayal came from two of the most important pillars of his life. When he finally raised his eyes, he said only, "Thank you for telling me." In the days that followed, Lucas and Lauren formed a silent alliance, a support network born out of suffering but that transformed into strength. They began talking frequently, venting about how deceived they felt, exchanging messages when the nights became unbearable. It didn't take long for them to realize they shared more than just pain. There was mutual understanding, genuine empathy, without judgment, without rush, without expectations beyond the comfort they offered each other. Lauren and Lucas gradually started seeing each other differently. At first, they were just two broken people trying to support each other to avoid completely falling apart. But as the days passed and their conversations became more sincere, they realized that, in their pain, they had found something rare and unexpected: understanding, complicity, and above all, acceptance. They didn't need to explain what they felt because both knew well that mix of humiliation, frustration, and emptiness. It was as if, without planning it, they had built a space just for them, where they could simply exist, without judgment, without masks. Between one conversation and another, they began noticing small gestures that had previously gone unnoticed: the way Lauren adjusted her hair when nervous, or how Lucas fixed his gaze on the horizon when trying to organize his thoughts. In every detail, they discovered a bit more about each other, and this process, as silent as it was profound, brought them closer together. There were no hasty declarations, no impulsive promises. Just a growing certainty that, even after so much pain, it was still possible to find beauty in someone's company. As Lucas allowed himself to explore this new feeling, Olivia continued immersed in her double life, believing she still had control over everything. She kept her relationship with Cole hidden, like someone holding a grenade without realizing the pin had already been pulled. Not for a second did she suspect that the truth had already been revealed, not by chance or error, but by the very wife of the man she shared secret encounters with. On the day of the confession, when she realized Lucas knew everything, she was stunned. She expected confrontations, accusations, maybe even despair, but found only the disconcerting calmness of someone who chose the path of honesty and rebuilding. After that night, the house that had sheltered laughter and plans for years became a space where silence dragged through the hallways, making each room a reminder of what was lost. Mornings no longer included coffee together, evenings no longer had movies on the couch, and even special dates were ignored, as if pretending nothing happened was less painful than facing the truth. Olivia tried to fill the void, especially in her relationship with Chloe and Mason, but the children's distance was evident. Chloe, once so close, now preferred to isolate herself. She spent hours locked in her room, pretended to have commitments to avoid family interactions, refused dinner invitations, as if every meal with her mother was a reminder that she was no longer the same. Mason, on the other hand, expressed his confusion more directly, fits of irritation, trouble sleeping, and silent crying, hidden under the covers, as if fearing weakness but unable to contain his fear. Desperate, Olivia tried to recreate moments that once brought the family closer. She cooked the kids' favorite meals, suggested outings, insisted on watching movies they loved when they were younger. But everything sounded artificial, forced, as if the words came rehearsed, without soul. Chloe and Mason, though young, noticed this attempt to recover what had already been lost, but they didn't respond. The invisible wall between them and their mother was solid. Until one afternoon, while organizing Mason's clothes, Olivia found a carefully folded note on the bed. She picked up the paper with trembling hands, sensing it wasn't just any ordinary note. She unfolded it slowly and read, wide-eyed, the sentence written in Mason's shaky handwriting, "I miss my mom. The one who made me feel safe. Now I just see someone who chose something else." It felt like a punch to the chest. Olivia had to sit on the edge of the bed, breathing with difficulty, clutching the note tightly, as if that piece of paper could undo what had been done. But it couldn't. There, in a few words, was all the pain Mason felt, which she, for so long, pretended didn't exist. She stood up, left the room, and descended the stairs with slow steps. She sat on the first step, motionless, staring into the void, unable to think, unable to cry. The note still clutched between her fingers, like an unchangeable verdict. And there, alone, for the first time, she realized that wanting to fix things wasn't enough, that preparing their favorite dish or pretending happiness during outings didn't matter. Trust, once broken, isn't rebuilt with good intentions but with actions she might no longer have the opportunity to take. For the first time, Olivia understood that it might be too late. On the day Lucas left home with his suitcase, he stopped in the middle of the sidewalk, looked at his phone, and with steady fingers typed a single message, "I've handled my part. Good luck with yours." He hit send and, for the first time in months, felt some of the weight lift from his shoulders. There were no more doubts, no turning back. He had done what needed to be done. Across town, Lauren read the message while sitting on the edge of her bed, her heart racing. She knew this moment would come, but she didn't think it would be so quick, so real, so final. She put the phone in the drawer, stood up, and for the last time went to the living room where Cole was watching TV, completely oblivious to what was about to happen. She stood there for a few seconds, observing the man she once chose as her husband, who now was just another stranger sharing her roof. Without raising her voice, without shedding a tear, Lauren said, with the firmness of someone who had no more room for hesitation, "I know about you and Olivia. And so does Lucas. He just left home. And that's exactly what we're doing now. Cole, pack your bags and leave." Cole froze for a second, like someone who can't believe he's been caught. But when he looked into Lauren's eyes, he saw there was no room for excuses or justifications. There was no fight, no argument, just a decision already made. Without saying a word, he stood up, went into the bedroom, and within minutes emerged with a suitcase in hand, passing by Lauren without meeting her gaze. Time passed, and as if following a pre-written script, the divorce was finalized for both couples. The hearings were quick, cold, without dramatic appeals or attempts at reconciliation. Each signed their papers, gathered their documents, and carried the definitive silence that accompanies endings where nothing more needs to be said. Lauren and Lucas, free from their past commitments, began forging new paths, each initially focusing on rebuilding their own lives, until they realized that the silent bond that united them in pain could also be the beginning of something completely different. Olivia, on the other hand, found herself alone, with the divorce papers in a drawer, shared custody of the children, and a void that, no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't fill. She sought some meaning in Cole for everything she had destroyed. They arranged to meet at a discreet cafe weeks after both were officially separated. When she saw him, she immediately noticed something had changed. He seemed more distant, less present, like someone who knew this chapter had actually ended before it even began. During the conversation, Olivia was direct, without beating around the bush. "I don't want to continue this, even now, with both of us separated." She spoke sincerely because, for the first time, she realized this was nothing more than an escape, a distraction that ultimately cost her own family. Cole slowly shook his head, as if he had expected to hear this. There was no argument, no pleading. Just a resigned silence that said more than any argument could. But what truly caught Olivia off guard happened a few days later, when, passing through a park, she saw from afar a scene that made her heart tighten. Lucas and Lauren walked side by side, calm and smiling, while Mason ran ahead, followed closely by Chloe, who laughed loudly. Olivia stopped, rooted to the spot, unable to look away. She saw there a family, the same family that, one day, had been hers. But now, rebuilt in a way she could never have imagined. Lauren held Lucas's hand naturally, without hiding anything, without guilt, without lies. It was a simple, true love, born from pain but now blossoming in peace. In that moment, Olivia realized that what remained for her were only memories and regrets. Lucas had moved on, and not just with someone else, but with someone who knew how to embrace him, understand him, and love him in a way she, at some point, stopped doing. Suspicious of your wife or daughter-in-law? Don't go through what we saw in the video. Check the link in the comments and get the ebook with valuable tips and investigator-approved sites to clear your doubts. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next time.